This is the Global Energy Leaders Podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Ray. Thanks for tuning in to episode 2. If you missed last episode, we had on Mark LaCour, talked about all kinds of stuff. Go check it out. We'll link to it in the show notes for you. On today's show, we have on James Gordey, but before we get to James, just a quick tidbit about what we're going to discuss. With James, we kind of cover young professionals in the industry. And what we're going to see here in the next few years is this turnover from where the older generation retires and the new generation comes in. Also, this new generation is going to bring in a lot of innovative ideas, and they're going to want to do things maybe a little different than they've been done before. With that being said, there's a lot of valuable knowledge that's leaving the industry. And as odd as it may sound right now is actually a great time to get into the oil and gas field. The reason being, despite the lack of jobs, companies are looking for ways to cut costs, to be innovative, to be efficient, to have better workflows. So, for a young entrepreneur looking to get into the industry, now is actually a good time. If you can figure out a way to cut costs and to be more efficient, there is a spot for you. And over the next few years, what we're going to see is an older generation retiring, and there's going to be spots for a new generation. So keep that in mind. Here's a little bit about James Gordey. James Gordey is a very versatile, driven engineer who uses his technical background and interpersonal skills to create value for the companies and projects for which he is involved. Upon graduation of spring of 2015, he managed to enter the oil and gas space at a time when headcount reduction was the industry standard. In the past year, he's gained extensive knowledge of the oil and gas vertical, co-founded several ventures, and demonstrated the ability to build a powerful network at the intersection of energy and technology. Recognizing the future potential of technology's applications to the industrial world, James is focused on pursuing knowledge of the Internet of Things, big data, artificial intelligence, wearables, cloud computing, cybersecurity, and other relevant technologies. He's currently working as the Sales and Business Development Manager at RealWear Inc., and we'll link to their website in the show notes. RealWear is building the world's first real hands-free and fully rugged head-mounted tablet solution for connected industrial workers. They're a seasoned team of human factors experts from the ultra-rugged smartphone, smart glasses micro display, and industrial augmented reality spaces. And actually, we talked to James about coming on in the future and talking a little bit more about RealWear. So stay tuned for that update as it comes out in the future. After graduating from LSU, James Gordey co-founded the American Petroleum Institute of Young Professionals, APIYP, and was later elected chairman. James has helped grow the membership from the initial interest group to over 200 members in Houston and has established APIYP as a blue-chip young professional organization in oil and gas. We'll also link to their website in the show notes. James Gordey also is a host of a podcast, and we'll talk about that and link to it in the show notes. It's called the Oil and Gas Young Professionals Podcast. We'll link to that in the show notes as well. This covers the application of technology to oil and gas, startups, and helping the next generation progress in their career. The show is hosted on his website, jamesgordey.com. That's jamesgordey.com. Again, will be in the show notes, and ranks as one of the top industry-specific podcasts on iTunes, having made iTunes news and noteworthy for the business news category, which is quite a feat, if I can say so myself. So, without further ado, here's my conversation the other day with James. I hope you enjoy it, and stay tuned at the end for just a little bit of a wrap-up session. James, good to have you on the show today. How's it going, man?
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
So let's get right into it. You are in the API Young Professionals, and you founded that or co-founded that, or kind of walk us through that story.
Okay, so I graduated from LSU with an engineering degree in May of 2015 on May 15th. And 3 days later, I moved to Houston, eager to start my career in oil and gas. About a month in, I discovered Oil and Gas This Week, Mark LaCour and James Hahn's flagship podcast. And I reached out to both of them. You know, I had all this energy and I was looking to channel it. So I inquired about how to get involved. Mark had recently started a young professionals group inside of his API Houston group to sort of offer a platform for young people to progress their career, and to get involved and learn more about the industry from a broader perspective and use the existing API connections to, leverage that and empower it. So basically, we started with a core group of about 7 people, sort of the co-founding group, and we've grown it to about 300 members between now and then. All just organic growth and doing events. And basically, we just want to do the young professionals organization. So we offer a lot of really specific and targeted industry exclusive events, not just happy hours, but really things where you can learn and progress your career. So we toured Honeywell's Customer Excellence Center. And we actually toured an offshore rig that was dry docked in Baytown here in the Houston area. We've toured Phillips 66's new state-of-the-art world headquarters. We have an upcoming event with Halliburton, which will probably already have happened by the time this is released. So really just, these aren't just fluff events or having events to get together and drink beer. We do that as well, but we want to provide you with things that you couldn't get normally, and expand your horizons and get some learning from that.
One of the things when you look at the oil and gas industry is this last downturn, we've lost a lot of jobs. And so a group like this is, it seems like trying to work towards building the next generation of people who can take the torch and do the next work of the 10, 15, 20 years. What is it amongst the young professionals right now? What's the mood? What's the spirit? Are they excited about what they're seeing in the oil and gas industry? Are they nervous? Or what's the general temperament?
Yeah, sure. So I'd say about 5 years ago, people were pretty excited. And then it goes without saying, the downturn occurred. And, we belabor, oh, we're so worried about the great crew change and all this. And then I know personally tons of people that graduated with engineering degrees that are very bright, have worked, all the summers that are eligible to do so in college with internships, or people that have even worked in the industry. They have wonderful GPAs, they're very bright, they have great interpersonal skills, and they don't have a job. They can't get a job. It's very difficult to do so. So I'd say that there's quite a bad taste, in addition to, if you want to get into it, all the climate change and the oil and gas not using social media. I'd say they haven't done themselves any favors in the past few years, especially with the younger demographic.
Yeah, you mentioned social media. One of the things that, just in my experience, has been is that oil and gas seems to lag behind, in technology, whether it is something like social media or even some of the more intricate systems that we like to use in GIS or whatever. And I know there's a lot of discussion going on right now about how does oil and gas make itself relevant again, and how does it use technology moving forward? Do you think the oil and gas industry is becoming more open to technology now, or is there still a big resistance to it?
Anyone who's tried to start a business or sell innovative products and services in oil and gas, you'll know that there's a tremendous resistance to change due to the massive scale and complexity of the projects that they operate within. So there is a resistance to change that's present across the enterprise. I think that they're being forced to adopt technology, maybe not even by choice, but really their hands are getting forced. Oil prices were low and they had to shrink their break-even costs. This isn't a technological problem. Let's just say in some sort of utopian world, oil and gas companies are like, okay, well, we love technology. Let's do it. Let's figure it out. Let's get moving here. They could drastically improve and change their businesses. The technology exists. These companies in California and Texas, all across the world, have created incredibly innovative technologies, but it's a people problem. We got to get people to buy in and implement and be willing to change how they do things. And, due to a lot of the forces at hand in the market, people are being forced to do so. And that's a good thing, whether or not they're willing to admit it.
One of the things we see when we talk about downturns is companies look to increase efficiency. With a lot of these, even on your podcast, I've seen there's some pretty exciting technology that's coming out there by some young entrepreneurs that are coming up. Do you think as we go through this downturn and as prices have finally leveled out a little bit, do you think that the entrepreneurs are being successful in convincing these companies that, hey, there is newer ways, there's more effective ways to do what we've done for a lot of years, but do it in a better way?
It's entrepreneurs, but it's also a lot of the big technology companies. A lot of them have set up shops here in Houston and abroad. And so, Microsoft and IBM and, also some really great startups they have answers to these problems, and they're starting to penetrate and work into these markets, but they don't really understand the business. So there's a bit of a learning curve there. We're working on it, but I wouldn't say that we're there yet. There's a whole lot of work to do, and this is just the beginning, just the tip of the iceberg. But if you let your mind run and think about it, there's truly some incredible possibilities, but people have to be willing to implement them in their business to drive real change and improve their business for the better.
We've mentioned the downturn a few times, and I just saw a report the other day that the storage increase was greater than expected. What are you hearing out there for 2017 as far as the price goes? Will it stay 40 to 50, or are you more optimistic to maybe that $60 to $70 range?
Yeah, so I don't profess to be an expert at all. Mark LaCour is pretty successful with his suggestions, and he says that we're going to have a steady increase over time. But we are in we're in the information age. We're in the age of hydrocarbon abundance. So as the demand increases, there's tons of technology in place to, sort of turn that on with the shale plays. And, we're going to start taking with technology, we're going to transfer that knowledge over to the next generation and abroad, so that not at shale, the geology isn't unique to America. So other countries and other parts of the world are going to turn that on as well. So I'd say that it's going to be a slow increase. I think we're on the upward trajectory, but $100 a barrel, that's not happening right now, or really in the near future at all, pending something catastrophic, which I don't ever wish to happen.
Right. No, I don't think $100 oil is, in the future either. And I'm not even sure, from someone who's, we kind of experience these downturns, $100 oil, when it crashes, it hurts a lot of people. And so it can be very volatile to get that oil price. And then all of a sudden you get down to, $20, $30 oil. And next thing you know, people are losing jobs. So I'm definitely enjoying stability of the market, because, volatility, while it can bring a lot of money, it can also bring a lot of hurt. And a lot of people lose jobs, and I'm sure you've got friends who are out of the industry now just because of what's happened over the last 2 years.
Yeah, no, either they're out of the industry or they were never allowed the chance to enter. So they were forced to go off and do other things.
When we look at the people we've lost over the past few years, and, this group of people who are getting out of college or going to college, how do we as oil and gas professionals or energy professionals in general, how do we market ourselves as a viable industry for people to come into? Something that, technology is kind of a hot and trendy thing, but, we need engineers, we need IT folks, we need people of all different disciplines. So how do we take the marketing aspect and say, hey, we need you in our industry, and what do we need to do to bring them in?
Oil and gas companies have quietly ignored this for a long time. The internet and social media and public perception from a technological standpoint. And that's how we access information. I'm not going to call someone or try and read in a book. I can literally press a button on my phone and ask a question, and it'll present all the information to me that I would ever want. The way we access information is drastically different. And so oil and gas companies and, big enterprise in general is just now figuring out that they need to have a plan in place to do this. From that perspective, I mean, obviously the high salaries are very attractive, but again, there's that lingering notion out there that people don't want to get burned. Earlier on in this year, the top 5 companies, and as far as revenue goes, were all technology companies. There are tons of exponential growth there. Mm-hmm. I was at a presentation here in Houston yesterday where when you search oil and gas worker, it's a bunch of, roughnecks out in the rig and grease. And then you search, tech worker, and it's a person at Google, and they've got all the drinks they want, and they're hanging out in the lawn. And, it's a very different perception. And I mean, that's the power, and that's how technology is used today. And that's how young people use it. So they're really going to have to implement action plans there, but also not just, public perception. They're going to have to actually, be open to new ideas. All these people are about to retire, the great crew change, that it's here right now. These people are leaving the workforce at a rapid rate. And they're going to need these young people to come in and solve these problems. And I work in technology, specifically in the industrial world. I think technology can help with a lot of these problems, and these companies are going to have to embrace it, or they're going to be asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, and you mentioned the big change that's coming up here. Are you seeing that companies are doing a good job of prepping their workforce, of all this knowledge that's leaving the industry, and how to, maintain what they've done well, all their lessons learned, so that when the next generation comes up, they have a training manual, if you will, to how to go forward?
There's definitely a lot of man hours and, management discussions and things like that on how to solve this problem. I would say that, some of the more nimble forward-thinking companies probably have solved this. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. It's oil and gas companies, and they're very intelligent. There's a lot of engineers and smart people in the industry. They're working, and they can solve these problems. But I'd still say that there's a lot of work to be done there. So yeah, the answer is kind of open-ended. I think they will figure it out, but it's going to be pretty painful. And, that process isn't going to be very fun for those that have to sort of program manage that, I would say.
A few quick questions, and we'll let you get off here. The first thing is, since you are with the young professionals, and that's really your kind of forte with your podcast and the API, what's the number one thing that you would say to someone who listens to this and says, hey, I want to get in the oil and gas industry? Where should they start? Should they start going working in the field and then go back to college? Should they go to college? Maybe is there a training resource, networking? Where would you advise a young person who wants to get into the oil and gas industry? Where should they start?
Yeah, so I'd say a college education is extremely valuable. That's sort of get you at the table for the discussion for most high-paying jobs. So yeah, I think a college education is a necessity of today's world. Other than that, when you're trying to figure out what you want to do, I would say look for areas of growth. If there's the parts of the industry that aren't growing, or look for the growth trends and what's going to be, what are people going to be focused on? What are they be hiring for? What are they hiring for right now? And target your efforts towards that, because ride that upward wave. Don't you yourself, don't go in an area where it's shrinking, or you're not going to change the tide. So look for the tide and find out how you can ride it up. Networking is very important. This is still a business of doing business with people. So I would say networking is important. You reach out to people, you get involved, you start meeting all these people, and you sort of put them in a little pockets in your brain, and then you start helping out other people that you meet, and then it sort of spindles out from there. And people start to know who you are and respect your authority and know that you're a good person and you can help them. And they try to do the same for you. It's really about helping people, and it'll get paid forward to you at the end. So yeah, look for areas of growth, and relationships are still important.
No, absolutely they are. So tell us a little bit about, before I let you go, the API Young Professionals in Houston. First off, is there other young professional organizations in, like, say, Dallas Fort Worth or Oklahoma City or Tulsa, or is it really just based out of Houston? And then the follow up to that is how can people get involved?
API YP, the Young Professionals Group, we're a subdivision of API Houston. So as right now, we're only in Houston, but SPE, I know that's the other sort of blue chip oil and gas organization. They do a wonderful job, internationally even, of really involving young people, and they have young professional specific groups. So I'd say that's a really good place to get involved. If you are in the Houston area, I would say to reach out to myself or the core team. You can find us on apiyp.org or api-yp.org. And then also, if you're looking for any of my contact information, you can find it on my personal website, jamesgordey.com.
Okay, great. Final question for you. If you had to tell someone what is one resource about the energy industry they should go and read, or maybe even a lecture or a presentation, for me, there's a few books I could name. Do you have a resource that you would give someone and say, hey, this is a good resource to start in the oil and gas industry or the energy industry in general, to go and learn from?
I'll cheat a little bit on this. I would say, as far as one resource goes, I'd say Mark LaCour's Oil and Gas This Week is a wonderful resource. He does a great job of keeping you up to date on the news once a week in podcast form. He's a wonderful guy. He's one of the nicest people I've ever met, knows everyone. And also, they just break things down in layman's terms. And also, I want to encourage people, and I've touched on this a lot, but I really want to, I really want to make sure I emphasize this to young people. Technology is the future, and it might seem scary at first, but this is an area of growth. This is going to drastically change how the industrial world and oil and gas does business. And it's also pretty fun, and you can be a part of something where it's not so stagnant. It's willing to change. And you can also solve problems. In the big industrial world, you can. When you talk about things like autonomous drill rigs, yes, like you literally can feed in all the legacy data for a drill rig and make it autonomous and make it drive safety and efficiency gains. Or you can present information to people in the field, or you can find trends to drive safety. I just can't emphasize enough. Technology is the wave of the future. So even if you're a petroleum engineer, or you're in marketing and sales, or whatever you're doing, procurement, supply chain, HSE, look at the ways that you can make changes for these companies and sort of offer your perspective to them, because the older generations, they know that they have problems, and they're always looking for ways to fix them. They know there's like this technology stuff or this computer stuff, and the millennials are coming. They just don't quite understand it. So sort of work with them to show them how this can help them and help their business, and make their life easier and make change for the better. And I think if you come in with a humble mindset, that really goes a long way. I can't stress that enough. Just be humble, come in ready to learn, and then when prompted, or when you see an opportunity to make a positive change with a new idea or a fresh thought, I think that will be well received if you bring it, if you put it on the right plate.
Good stuff. James, thank you so much. The Oil and Gas Young Professionals podcast, API Young Professionals, your website, which all that stuff will be in the show notes. Anything else that you want to plug or mention before we let you go today?
Yeah, so we haven't touched too much on my company. It's called RealWear. You can go to realwear.com. We make head-mounted tablets that clip into your hard hat and you speak to Siri or Alexa. They're explosive-proof, Class 1 Div 1, intrinsically safe for oil and gas, explosive environments, plants, offshore, everywhere. And what we do is summarize it. It'll make your workforce faster, safer, and smarter. Visit realwear.com or reach out to me personally if you'd like to learn more.
And we'll put a link to that company's website in the show notes and along with your LinkedIn and your personal website as well. Well, look, thank you so much again for coming on, and I'll talk to you later.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Pleasure.
I want to thank James again for coming on. I will link to all of his information in the show notes, and we talked offline about him coming on in the future and discussing RealWear, so stay tuned for that. Next week, we are going to get into DNA sequencing for oil, right? You've heard of that. I hadn't either. It's a really interesting topic, something I wasn't familiar with until recently, and I think in this kind of economy where we're looking for ways to be more efficient in the oil and gas sector, this is the kind of stuff that we want to look into and see how it works. Be looking for that. And then we have a few interviews that are lined up. Beyond that, we are looking at some international guests to hope to get them on maybe December or January, trying to bring those guys and get their schedule. As you can imagine, that's a little bit difficult to get everything lined up. But if you have someone who said, hey, this guy is in the energy sector, this is not an oil and gas show, it's an energy show, and so we are going to bring on guests from all over the energy spectrum to talk about a wide range of topics. And the reason is energy is connected. And it sounds odd to say. You think of oil, you think of gas, you think of renewables, you think of all these things that are, kind of separate. And there is a reality there. But the other reality is that they all are interconnected and they're all intertwined in a way. And we want to, and as energy professionals, we want to understand what is going on in our industry. And so as oil prices go up and down, how does that affect renewables? As renewable subsidies come out, how does that affect oil and gas? As a nuclear power plant's built, how does that tie in? And not only from a U.S. standpoint, but from a global standpoint, one of the things I've learned as I've traveled to Africa a few times now, to Mexico and to Canada, is there are a lot of really good and innovative ideas out there. And one of the things we're looking to bring on in January, we hope, maybe February, is to talk about Power Africa. So if you're not familiar with Power Africa, go ahead and look that up and get ready for that conversation. That should be really exciting. Thanks for tuning in. If you could, please like and subscribe to iTunes or Stitcher or wherever you listen to the show at, and leave us some feedback. We appreciate it. Until next time, keep climbing.